Hey guys, welcome back to Casino Guitars. We're back with another lesson video. I appreciate you guys watching. The last one sounds like from the comments that you enjoyed it, so that is good. We're going to try to keep them rolling. I know there's been a couple of requests, I guess, for a slide one, so I'll try to think of a good slide lesson, and we'll do that in the next one. But today, I want to cover something that you hear about all the time if you consume guitar YouTube, or if you're taking guitar lessons, or if you're learning about guitar. There's this hot button thing about triads, playing triads, using triads, playing the changes using triads. And so I thought I would show you today a little hack or trick or whatever tip you want to call it that I use all the time. And hopefully it's, some of you might be like, oh yeah, that's dumb. But if you're new to that, if you're new to playing guitar and you're new to not just playing sort of the open cowboy chord kind of things, I think it will be helpful. And we're gonna tie it into something that you almost definitely know, which is that minor pentatonic shape. I'm playing this pretty amazing PRS special, one of my favorites in the shop at the moment. Yeah, I think, for a while I was on the 594 train. This might be my new favorite PRS model. Going into the Tone Master, into that same chicken picking preset, factory preset as we used last time. So anyways, jumping right into it. In the beginning when I was playing a little bit, I was playing a really simple chord progression. It was A minor, F, C, and G. And I started off just finger picking it. Now, if you know anything about the Nashville number system, you know that is a 6, and then the 4 chord, and then the 1 chord, and then the 5 chord. And if you don't know about Nashville numbers, we don't really have time to go crazy into it, but that's just the chords laid out from what the major key would be. C in this case, A minor is what I'd call the minor key. So if C is 1, F is the 4th letter from that, the 4 chord. G is the 5th chord from that, it's the 5 chord. A minor is the 6. And the 1 and the 6 are always the relative major and minor. So you could call this thing in the key of C, you'd probably call it in the key of A minor, because that's what we're resolving to. Either way, it's fine to play those open chords. They sound cool. Maybe you know them as bar chords, also cool. But sometimes you don't need a chord that big, or you're playing with another guitar player and you want to play something differently, or you just want to broaden your horizons a bit. There's all sorts of ways to study triads. People do caged. There's another system that I sort of like. That's, again, more than we're going to go into today. But here's one, like I said, a little piece of all those things that I like to use, and it happens to be right in the middle of that first pentatonic shape that most people learn. So in this case, we're in A minor. Here's A minor pentatonic, starting on the 5th fret. It's just 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. Now, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit, and I'm gonna go from pentatonic to diatonic. So we're just gonna make it like the A natural minor scale, which would be 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7. The way I play it is on the next string, 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 8, 5, 6, 8. So all together. Now, you don't have to know that to get the gist of what I'm about to say, but it sure is helpful. So if you don't know that shape, learn that shape. When I'm looking at that scale, all the notes that build the chords from the key that we're playing in, they exist right there. If we were numbering them, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Also, if you're not familiar with that, if you can't do that, that's a nice thing to go and learn, just to put those numbers with the notes. But here's how we're gonna think about it today. So if I know all those notes exist right here under that scale that we all use the noodle, and play bluesy things and solo over backing tracks on YouTube. If I know all those notes exist, that means all those chords exist right there too. And here's some basic shapes that I like to use from there. So the progression, like I said, that we did, or that I did in the beginning, was 6, 4, 1, 5. So that's a really common progression, especially like if you're in like a modern country cover band or, you know, all sorts of rock songs, all sorts of things. That progression is super standard. So let's start with the 6 chord, like the progression. If I'm just thinking of that chord shape, and you can think of it pentatonic or diatonic like I just showed you. But if you think about your first finger just hanging out on the 5th fret, and everything we do is gonna be focused on from the D to the B string. So I'm barring 5 from the D string and just holding the whole thing down. Now, I'm gonna keep that held down, you know, so 5, 5, 5, 5. But to make it my 6th chord, to make it an A minor, I'm gonna take my ring finger. I'm gonna put it on the 7th fret on the D string, and it's gonna be 7, and then it's gonna be 5 on the G, 5 on the B. That's enough, but you can get the high E as well, 5. There, we'll work that as an A minor chord, right? Now you can use that as a 6th chord in any shape, and we'll talk more about this in a second. But let's say I wasn't playing in A minor. If I wanted to play in G minor, I could just slide that back. That's a G minor, you know. And then if I'm in G minor, my scale's back there on the 3rd fret now. But back to this one. So the 6 is going to be, again, starting on the D string, 7, 5, 5, 5. Now, with the triads, it's not going to be like our open chords where the bass note's necessarily always on top. Sometimes it's an inversion where the notes are mixed up. So in this case, though, that is our A, that's our C, there's our E, there's our A again. So this chord's totally in order. It's the 1, the 3, the 5, the 1 again. Now, here's what's great about this chord progression that we're doing in here, in this video. That was the 6. All I've got to do to make it the 4 chord is take my middle finger and on the B string, instead of letting this still be barred by 5, I'm just gonna cover it up on the 6th fret. So now I'm starting on the D string, 7. My first finger's still kind of barring the 5th fret, the highest 4 strings. So 7, 5, middle finger's gonna be 6 on the B string. That's enough. That's an F chord or the 4 chord, but F in this instance. And then if I want, my first finger, if I've still got that 5 on the 1st string ringing out. Now notice that's just a D shape. And when I'm playing this thing, that's the beginning of a C shape, like if I had a capo. Hopefully you can see that well. But we don't really need that bass note necessarily. We're just gonna play it like that. So in this one, that note right there, that's still my A. There's my C, there's my F. So F, A, C, that makes an F chord. That's an F. There's the 4 chord. Now the 1 chord we even talked about in the last video, it's literally gonna be, I'm gonna leave that finger there. And then you can either, on the B string, have the 5, and then have your pinky play 8 on the high E. That's a true C chord, a true 1 chord. Or your pinky can cover the 8 on the E and the B string. Then it's more really like a C5 because it's just the 1 and the 5th, but it still works. And I tend to use that one a lot. So far we had 1, or 6 rather, 4. There's your 1 chord. And then to get to the G, the 5 chord, all we gotta do is take my ring finger and put it on the 7th fret on the G string. So now I got, going from the D string, 5, 7, 8. And if I play that last 8, it's really like a suspended chord, but I don't, necessarily need it. There's no 3rd in this, so this is sort of like a G5 as well, but it'll always work. The other thing I can do, obviously, for my 5 chord is when I was playing that 4 chord, I can slide it over 2 frets because your 4 and your 5 are always going to just be a step apart from each other. But for the sake of today's video, here's my 6, my 4, my 1, my 5. Now what's great about that, in the video, I looped myself doing the chord progression with the normal chords. Actually, it was F then. And you never really saw me just strum it, even though I could have. Like I could strum those chords, shapes. But where I think they really shine is when you're able to sort of arpeggiate them. use hammer-ons. Now, when I'm playing that 5 chord right there, by the way, this is just a fun, this one's a free tip. You can play on that G string instead of playing it on the 7th fret. You can, if you can stretch enough, you can get it back on the 4-2, and that's also the 5 chord. You're just switching out which note you're playing, the 3 for the 5. But anyways, so if you got that, if you can go 6, 4, 1, 5, and you can visualize that that scale is all right there, it opens up a whole world for when you're playing rhythm or the accompaniment to maybe someone else playing rhythm guitar, because you can play the chord. All I did right there is I took those notes, 8, 7, 5, 8, 6, 5, and I was holding my A minor, and then I just added them to the triad. I just did a walk-up. And you can randomly add those to that A minor chord, and they'll all be something. So like if I add the G right there, it's A minor 7. Doesn't really matter if you know that. You just know that those notes are all gonna sound good because they're in the same key and the same scale. So I can do that all the way through. A minor. And you use it to like kind of walk yourself back to the chord progression. But now you know, instead of having to put on a capo, instead of having to play bar chords, instead of having just to play the exact same open chords the other guitar player's playing, there's at least one way where you can go through and you can play, triads if you want to call them that. But just different versions of those chords, all in the scale that you probably are familiar with and already know. You can add lead lines. You can use it just to play lead and nail the chord tones. Like, you don't even have to play the full chord. If you were just noodling and you wanted to go, okay, I know all those notes are in that chord. You start to be able to hear the chords underneath whether anyone's playing them or not, and that's pretty valuable, and I think it's a pretty good thing as a guitar player to be able to do that. The other great thing is if you learn that song and it's 6, 4, 1, 5,